Then came the order on the 7th of May to fire Catherine Witherspoon. Again, I felt that it was not the thing to do, at least at that time, because we were in the middle of a number of important decision-making processes and very controversial issues, and it would be extremely disruptive. In addition to which, the executive officer serves at the pleasure of the board, and the issue must be brought before the board. And I was ordered to bring it before the board at the meeting later that month. I consulted with the sub-quorum of the board and determined that there was not an enthusiasm for doing this, and I refused to do so. And then I guess the final straw for me was the instructions and contradictory instructions received on the global warming early action list. I would like to add that when I spoke with the Chief of Staff, and she impressed upon me the importance of which the governor appropriately places on the implementation of AB 32, that the governor wanted the Air Resources Board to be in charge of AB 32 because all board members served at the pleasure of the governor. Now, I think this is a bit revisionist because, as I recall, and Catherine can fill this in, during the negotiation of AB 32, I believe that the governor's office wanted the Climate Action Committee to play a more important role. Then, when I was fired, and I really respect Catherine for resigning, because it appeared to me what would happen is that board members would be picked off one by one until a sufficient number of board members would vote to remove Catherine. And that would have been disastrous for the Air Resources Board, because it is a wonderful, dedicated group of individuals that serve on that board. So I applaud Catherine's action because I believe it saved the Air Resources Board from devastation by the governor's office.
Oh. When Dr. Starr started telling the truth to the newspapers, I made, an instantaneous decision that I was going to do the same, come what may. And since the question began about the San Joaquin Valley and what more could be done, the sad fact is that air quality is extraordinarily bad in San Joaquin, and pound for pound, emissions you release in the San Joaquin Valley make 5 times more ozone than they do in Los Angeles. And that's why they were classified as extreme. It was a simple acknowledgement of reality. What the governor's office didn't know and never took the time to learn is a debate over, if we can't attain sooner, can we make the air better quickly? The debate was over whether operational controls should be imposed, meaning on high ozone days, turn off old boilers. On high ozone days, prohibit trucks older than 2002 from operating in the valley. And it turns out there are more than 100 high ozone days all in the summer. So you would be shutting down whole industries. Fruits could not get to market, food processors could not process, glass furnaces could not operate, can and coil operations that package the produce could not be manufactured, and the Air Resources Board deemed that unduly burdensome, unreasonable, and something that we would need to explore. Were there some kinds of operational controls, like no burn days, that could be used, and the board directed staff to explore that over the next 6 months. Fireplace rules, things of that nature. But not the kind that had been teed up and which the community was demanding. The other thing is that when the governor said, we need you to take strong action in the next 30 days, what's on calendar this month is the construction rule. And construction equipment is the single largest source of NOx and particulate in California, and we are being told to weaken that rule, which has an immediate bearing on air quality in both the South Coast and the San Joaquin, and to delay it, which has a bearing on for how long people need to breathe unhealthy air. So, to say it was schizophrenic is to be kind. It was absolutely appalling.
Okay, thank you. We will open the 12th. We'll now hear from Mr. Laird, followed by Ms. Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of quick reactions. I was an early co-author of this bill, and it was stated that it was a hope that we would have a discussion on the pros and cons of climate change here. That's what we did during the year and a half that we discussed this bill in the legislative process. And I believe that the notion of meeting the 25% goal in emissions is a settled issue. That was settled in the legislation that we are going to do that. The discussion is how, and the reason it was such an amazing amount of authority was placed with the CARB was that they were science-based and generally independent. And it seems to me that's what's at the heart of this hearing, because we made the decision legislatively to place it there, and that's key to the implementation. And so and it's my hope that when the story is written on this whole thing, it appears in the science section, given the fact that section is being referred to. So my question first to Ms. Witherspoon and Dr. Sawyer is that given sort of the history of the Air Board being independent and science-based, what, looking backwards, should the legislature have done in oversight in relation to trying to keep to that, and what going forward should we do to deal with that? And I know Ms. Witherspoon gave us specific recommendations, and it's unclear to me what statute, what required new statute, what oversight sort of against what existing authority would be. But I'm sort of asking you both to help us in terms of what you think we should be doing or should have done in legislative oversight to preserve the independence and the science-based status of the ARB.
Well, I certainly concur with the idea of having term appointments for Air Resources Board members, because that clearly would give them the independence to vote their conscience and to allow that to be based on science.